my screen and I can just go for it. And then if you want to take over halfway or whatever, and we can just.
Sorry, Alex. For some reason my audio was off. What is the last like 30 seconds of what you said?
I said I can start off if you want, and then just explain the beginning bit, and then if you guys want to, if someone wants to take over, and we can just do it that way if you want, and chip in or whatever. I don't know. See how it goes, and if you want to speak up or whatever.
Sure.
So I'll share my screen, and I'll share the. I'll show entire screen. So you should be able to see us now. Right, so it says steering semantic data processing. So I think that in itself is a bit loaded for me. So understanding what that means. The way I think about it, because I was, for a project that I've been doing, is analysing email data. And there's a lot of information in emails that you don't need. And it's how do you get just the content of what you want in the way you want it. So like in emails, there's a lot of pleasantries. And you're just not interested in that type of data. You're just interested in something that means whatever you're asking in the prompt. So you might be asking for, I don't know, complaints that are happening within an email or something like that. That seems to be a common one. Something that's important that you're just trying to strip out. And the Doc Wrangler as well. So Doc, it doesn't just accept documents. It accepts just JSON, CSV, PDFs, and I think there's a few others if you use the underlying infrastructure. So not Doc Wrangler, but I can't remember what the actual understructure is called. But this is a system that where you take data in through those processes I just mentioned, so CSV, JSON, and PDF, and then you run a series of operations, a bit like you would with pandas or polars, if people are familiar with that. But it's using LLM operations to extract that information and then summarize it further, maybe later on. And then process it and get it out in a format that you can use somewhere else. So this is one of the charts that they showed. So you've got the user, you've got the data, and then you've got the LLM pipeline. And what the paper's saying in this is that you've got those three things that you're going round constantly. So you start with the user, you try to understand the data if you're passing it through the pipeline through a prompt, and then you get some sort of output, and then you pass that back to the user, which could be you, it could be a set of business analysts or whoever, and you're trying to just grasp what it means and what information you're trying to extract out of it and what summaries you're trying to get. And these are the three common terms that you use within it. So map, reduce, and filter. So map just means extract key terms. Reduce just means summarize those fields that you've mapped. And filter just means just reduce the information that you pulled already. So in Doc Wrangler, you can actually use code in there like Python and you normal. And I think the underlying sort of system, you can use pandas as well. But I'm not sure if you can use that in Doc Wrangler. But Doc Wrangler is the front end, the GUI interface to it, and I think that makes all the difference. We'll explain why. So if anyone wants to chirp up, they've seen anything that's interesting or they've got any questions, just shout up. It's just, I prefer it, if it's just not me talking. If if people want to take over as well, then sort of have a discussion. So these are some of the comments that I thought when I've been looking through it. When I've been doing this as a project, using this software to sort of get this information from emails, I was thinking I didn't even know about this. I didn't even know you could extract this much information using Doc Wrangler or LLMs. I knew I could do it, and I have done it through other tools, but this just makes it so much easier and so much more economical. And that's just one of the comments that I've made. What else have I said? Yeah, so I've already covered those formats. Okay, let's just hide that.
Yeah, nothing yet, Alex, but happy to. The next couple pages, I'll definitely have some thoughts to share.
Yeah, I have one thing to say. So, Vishal, did you just take the course with Hamal and Shira as well?
Yeah, the AI evals course. I was in the July 21st cohort.
Oh, cool, lovely. So like one thing that they keep on, like one huge heuristic about these processing pipelines that they created is like the very first step is always manual review of whatever you're trying to look at. I haven't read this paper yet, but I wonder if they're going to be able to like talk a little bit more about that in this paper.
Yeah. So they do talk about that in this, and this is one of the beauties of the software, the Doc Wrangler, is that they allow you to write your prompt, run it through the operations, get the output, and then you can comment next to the output fields, and it stores that output stores that comment next to the actual output. So when you go to improve the prompt later, it stores that comment plus the record that was commented against, and then it helps you improve based on those comments because it passes that to the prompt generator. I might actually have the software up.
So is this then basically like a super powered custom eval tool to write like open codes and axial codes on your LLM generated content?
Yeah, so I can quickly go through the software. It'll help understand the screenshots as well from the paper. So on the left hand side, you've got your data, your files that you upload. So this one's a JSON. And then you've got your prompts in the middle. And then on the right hand side, you've got your fields from the data from over here. So it's got transaction start date, agent, chat duration, teams, session, all those. And then on the right hand side, you've got your statistics. This is how many documents there are. So there are only 250 in this. So it's not a huge amount, but you might have tens of thousands, millions or whatever. And this is how many words there are on average in each document. So that's the mean. And then minimum words, 196, maximum words in a record, 927, and then standard deviation from the mean. And the prompt is written in a Ginger. So this is the starting prompt. So it goes from top to bottom, your operations. So when it's saying input.text, it's saying input text from here. And we'll see what that text is. So if we say show outputs, and the text is this one here. So you can see it's a transcript from a flight from Canadian Flight Company. And that's what we're passing into the prompt here. So we're inserting that in. So describe the chief complaint from the user, including direct quote from the user capture. And I think this is one of the ones that are mentioned, one of the data sets that's mentioned in the paper as well. And then it's just telling you how to output the data. And then this is the JSON output format. So this is enforcing the output essentially. And then the output will be displayed down here in these columns. So you've got chief complaint, complaint category, and frustration level. and you can see, you've narrowed that down to high customer service, absolutely terrible. So if you click on that, terrible service, and if we look at the actual text that we sent in the prompt, you can see it's got some of that information from there. And if you scroll down to the bottom, you've also got some more information in there, not worth the headache. So it's extracted the most important information for the summary. And then you can run another operation after in serial, going down. So that gives you an idea of the software.
Yeah, I would just add that it's not, Doc Wrangler is not a evals tool. I mean, you can do eval-like things in it, like you can review LLM outputs, you can add notes, but that's sort of like a byproduct. The main goal is processing unstructured data.
From I don't know, this is what my understanding. What is a pure eval product?
I think of things like, so in the course they shared, I think it was called Brain Trust,
for example.
Yeah, Brain Trust. So like Brain Trust, you load in, I think maybe JSON of user and assistant traces. Yeah, so you have like assistant messages, user messages, and from start to finish. And then you can like expand system prompt and look at it, and then you can put like notes in there. So that's what I think of when I think of like an evals tool, where it's like the only use for the tool is to review data, add some kind of qualitative data coding, adding some notes, things like that. So yeah, I just wanted to like, I'm not saying that you can't do those things in here, like you certainly can, but my main takeaway was that it's not like an eval framework. Primarily it's like you're trying to extract, meaningful information from unstructured text.
Yeah, okay. So what's Brain Trust's aim then? If you're evaluating, you've got to have some endpoint, haven't you? Or is it, doesn't Brain Trust really care? It's up to the user to decide what to do with that.
Yeah, I think it is user driven. I think, like, I'm just looking at the Brain Trust website, and like you can track metrics on different evals. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, mind interrupting me if you have other points of view, but essentially what I understood from the course on evals is that it's basically the wild west right now. But the best thing that you can do is to look at that unstructured data and be able to understand it more. So that's covered. If you go up a little bit in the paper and in the image that they show, it's the gulf of comprehension. And so I'm curious, Vishal, because you say that the Doc Wrangler is used to be able to take unstructured data and parse out important information for it. Okay, that's the difference you're saying, is you want to look at unstructured data and see what you can pull out of it with Doc Wrangler. Okay, that's what you mean. Now, Alex, I think with your question, you said, what does Brain Trust do, essentially? What I've seen with all the different eval tools is that essentially it's like a trace collector of sorts, with the addition of being able to add annotated notes to those traces. And every eval provider has their own strategy of doing it. And the difference between what the eval providers show and what Hamal and Shreya showed, from my point of view, is that they didn't show a tool, they showed heuristics of how to process this problem of understanding your data, seeing where your data is failing, and then trying to update your system to cover those generalized behaviors that you're trying to cover. So I think now I understand what Vishal was saying that Doc Wrangler is doing, but that's from my point of view what like the each different eval providers doing. But the interesting thing that I kind of noted during the whole course was that they really valued creating your own custom eval tool. I guess this is different, so we can talk about this differently. But yeah, that was like one thing. One key takeaway is like, yeah, they said you'll know the best way to understand your data, so it's best to just create your own tool.
By the way, I'm totally fine in going off track and talking about the wider evals because it's something that I'm not super educated on. So yeah, go ahead and fire questions off and add things in where you need to. It's useful to me. One thing that I still don't get though is like the brain trust or whatever for their evals, there must be some end goal that they've got in mind to actually do the evaluation in the first place. And that's the bit that I'm not getting, because we're doing evaluations here. It's built into a particular function, but what do the others do, like brain trust, that's different to this? Is it just that this is built into a particular pipeline? But I imagine that all systems have got a pipeline.
Yeah, my understanding is that frameworks like brain trust, it's kind of like weights and biases for evals, like for LLM app. So it's like it's a place to document, like to log, performance on different metrics, to log your like raw traces. I don't know if there's like my understanding of brain trust is very limited. Like I'm looking at their website right now, and it's like seems like you can compare different LLM outputs. You can run different experiments and like capture metrics and things like that. So it seems, I think it's like weights and biases, but for LLM applications. I think weights and biases has their own thing for LLM applications, but brain trust is like it's kind of like logging, experiment tracking your metrics. So like the end goal, Alex, would be like improving metrics on your product.
Yeah. Which is essentially what we're doing here, isn't it, for the output? But it's not. It's for this product itself. But then you could integrate this product into another one because it's got a Python library that you can just.
Yeah, like you could very well. Like my understanding is like for Doc Wrangler, your inputs are documents, right? It's very broad. Like documents is like anything, I think, in a JSON. Anything you can chuck into a JSON format. So you could very well take your LLM application traces, right? Which is basically just a bunch of text, format it as JSON if it's not already, and you could provide that JSON to Doc Wrangler and then process that information and do sort of your evals on that that set of documents, where each document is like a trace of user assistant messages in a particular LLM app interaction. So I think that's how you could use Doc Wrangler as a AI evals tool, but it is much more generalizable than just that.
Yeah, so I like it how they talk about it being an integrated development environment. I thought that was quite interesting. So when they're talking about the IDE, they're talking about just having a graphical user interface, I'm guessing, that you can click around and sort of get the variables and just understand what's happening at a glance. And you can hide things, outputs. So you just got... And I thought that was quite interesting. So let's go back to the Zoom. They talk about in situ notes. So That was what I was talking about, where they can you can look at notes. To the outputs. So if we're looking at this one here, you can add your notes down at here. So this is the chief complaints that was extracted, and you can just write in the notes, yes, this is great, but include more details, and you can add that note, and then that note would appear down here on the left hand side. And you can see the data it's attached to it. That's what it means by in situ. And then you can look at that data elsewhere. So if you improve prompt, it's going to call me a liar now. There's this one. Improve prompt on that one. You can see that you've got those notes there, and it'll wrap that data into it as it's passing it to the LLM with your current prompt to get a better prompt. There's also somewhere else it uses it as well, and it also does this bit here where it's it improved the operations. So these are your operations up here. If I click this overview button, so you got, this is the pipeline flow. So you've got this top one here, which is a map. That one over there, and then you've got the reduce, which is this one here. So this reduce just summarizes based on the maps columns that you've added. You just reference those there. But what you can do is you can go to this here, and you can go as optimize operation, and it takes the input, and then it takes the output. So with the input being the input data, and then the output being everything that's gone through the various operations, and then it knows what the prompt is as well, so it knows what the end goal should be, and it knows what the end data, and it'll keep running through and improving the operations. So it might add a few operations just to make it a bit more efficient and a bit better, and it can do that automatically. And I think that's what it means by using the LLM as a judge.
Yeah, just to add, and sorry, I was a little distracted, but you might have mentioned this, Alex, but basically, like they said, when you ask it to optimize, it'll try different candidate paths of different sequences of operations, and then the LLM judge will evaluate each path and then like pick, I assume it like picks the highest scoring path, and that's what it suggests.
Yeah. Well, I didn't. Have they got the ability to change the model, or is that only the user who can change the model? So they're going to use the same model that you've selected for each of those operations.
Oh, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, that part I wasn't clear. I did. They did say something about, when they were evaluating. Let me see if I can find it. But when they were evaluating the user data, so they were looking at, I think this was their online deployment. So they deployed it online, and I think they collected Doc Wrangler telemetry data for like 1,500 users. And they said pipelines used different AI models. GPT-4o Mini, our default model, was the most common model used in 82% of pipelines. GPT-4o appeared in 12% of pipelines, typically for more complex workflows or in combination with GPT-4o Mini. So that in combination makes me think that you can mix and match per task or per operation. That's my assumption.
Yeah, so on screen now I've got the map operation, and you type in the model. So this is GTP 4.0 Mini, but later on you can change this to, you can say, okay, because it's only a summarization, I'm going to use GPT-5 advanced or whatever, and you can enter that in there.
I see. Nice.
And just to know, I've been using GPT-5 Nano, and it's been really, really good. I've been impressed with it, and it's so cheap as well. So cheap. Yeah, so yeah, so it's saying here that if you're using this is what Matt was going back to last week. He was saying that some of the models that aren't thinking models, that are more lightweight models like the GPT-4o Mini, isn't going to be good at sending lots of different themes to it. If you trying to extract a lot of information just in one prompt, it'll end up just failing. And what you need to do is just split those down into individual tasks. So in the software, you would just add another operation, add another map operation, and then you would just extract, maybe just take that bit out and then put that into a different operation. But if you're using a larger model, like GPT-5, the latest model, most powerful model, which has got thinking on it, you'll probably be able to do that, but obviously it's going to cost a lot more.
Yeah, just as an example, as that they gave later on, was that like someone was processing medical doctor-patient transcripts, and initially they had one prompt for two tasks of part like teasing out like how did the patient feel about the doctor's like how comfortable or uncomfortable was the patient with the doctor, and then symptoms that the patient was experiencing. And the first pass they did with both in the same prompt, they found that the LLM was confusing discomfort in the symptoms with discomfort that the patient was feeling with the doctor. And so that was like one where the Doc Wrangler's optimization said, hey, like, and the cool part was like it literally like, because it's an LLM behind the operation optimization, like it says like, hey, the LLM seems to be confusing symptoms with, doctor-patient relationships. So you might want to break these two up.
Yeah. Did it do that automatically? Because I've not done a process optimization yet.
It gives you the option. Yeah. It like, I don't think it, so my understanding, again, it's very theoretical. I haven't actually used it, but my understanding is that like, when you pick to optimize it, it'll do that part automatically, and it'll make a suggestion, and then you can either ignore the suggestion, or you can just say, yeah, implement what you're suggesting, and then it'll do it. Then it'll just do it. Like it'll just set the prompts correctly. It'll set the operation kind of chain. And when they did their user study, they found that if people understood what the change was, they would ignore the optimization offer from the LLM, and they would just do it themselves. But if they didn't understand what the purpose of the optimization was, they would just be like, yeah, go ahead, like just do it for me. If it improves it, that's fine. So I thought that was very relatable.
I don't care. Just do the work for me. Yeah, as long as
just make it better.
Something else. Some of the wordings, because they use quite complex wording. Something that someone who's not in the industry wouldn't understand. And they talked about inner loop and outer loop quite a bit. And I was thinking, what do they mean inner loop? What do they mean outer loop? And what they mean by outer loop, because that's what the Doc Wrangler provides, is that it shows the data going in, and then it shows you the end output, and then it shows you the notes against the data in situ, and that's what they're talking about, the outer loop. Both sides of what's happening. And then the inner loop, when they talk about that, is when they're talking about improving the operations, improving the efficiency of the pipelines and getting better results. And they're saying that Doc Wrangler is more about the outer loop than it is about the inner loop. Obviously, it can do the inner loop because you've got the LM-assisted decomposition, but yeah, it's the outer loop where it really sort of shines.
Yeah, I guess to that point, Alex, correct me if I'm wrong, but like DocETL is like the back end, and Doc Wrangler is the front end. Is that a correct interpretation?
That's right. Yeah.
Right. So you could like technically write a different front end while still using DocETL.
Yeah. So one of the things that you can do is you use Doc Wrangler to sort of do your original sort of, because it's good at managing the outer loop, understand your data, and then you can export the YAML file just by clicking the button that I've got on screen at the moment, and then you can go in there and you can open that file, and then you could use that using DocETL.
Nice.
And all it is just a prompt there. Just pretty smart, because essentially you'd have a series of YAML files you could sort of pipe together as well. It just makes expecting it a bit easier than other methods, like coding it, because coding it will be horrible. We've talked about the Ginger templates. So we've talked about the map operations, the duplications, deduplications, that's the resolve. So yeah, so I think what I do is I probably just go to the because I explained a lot of this stuff in the software side of things. I think the implementation detail, so the actual user study, is probably the most interesting bit.
Yeah.
In how they used it. So there was about 3 or 4 different data sets. There was 10 people, if I remember right, so P1 to P10. And then these were the data sets, so medical transcripts, presidential debates, safety records, and privacy policy. So the privacy, so these are the tasks that they wanted to do. Extract patient name, extract age, gender, analyse known risk factors for illness, analyse symptoms and associated medical advice, analyse patient discomfort and illness type. And then they would extract information, again, from presidential debates. So extract humour quotes, track how discussion topics range. So I think this was pre-Trump, or maybe Trump's first term, and then it's all the presidents before that. Safety records, yeah. So it's extracting quite a bit of information from various different elements, and the actual people that they got involved had a bit of knowledge about LLMs, or they may have some experience in, say, pandas and polars and those type of libraries, but they didn't have a lot of information. They weren't sort of experts in LLM. And I think this was done last year, the actual case. So I think this is one that you picked out. I looked at your tweet before.
Oh, nice.
And this is the same bit that I picked out as well. Initially used a freeform trust summary and then added a Boolean trust to validate the results more easily via a histogram. Yeah, just to get more information out, so they can actually see the results in a count rather than just a true. Did you pick out any notes from here, Vishal? Anything that you thought was worthy?
Yeah, and I agree with you. The user study section was my favorite, and I would love to see more of this done in ML papers and research, because like they said that research shows that you only need like 5 users to gain valuable insights. And so, but yeah, I think I'm just looking through my highlights. Yeah, I think there's one. So there's one concept which I think is really interesting, where I'll just kind of read it, but they say that to better understand LLM behavior at a glance, participants often adjusted operation outputs or interpretability. And they talk about how a couple participants added reasoning attributes to operation output schemas. Another participant created separate map operations to generate summaries of the attributes that were extracted. They adjusted the presentation of outputs. They did reformatting operations. They added a Boolean indicator attribute to the LLM's output so they could filter specific mentions of a certain phrase. And so they talk about how these added attributes were not used as final task outputs. Instead, they serve to help participants verify whether the LLM had correctly interpreted their intent, bridging the specification gulf. So I thought that was really interesting. It was like, and sorry, this is on page, this is right above 6.1.2. So yeah. So I thought that was really interesting. They're kind of like, they're sort of like these meta operations that users were doing to kind of validate kind of these like built-in kind of guardrails, so to speak, where they were saying like, okay, is the LLM doing this correctly? Is it finding the things that I want? And I thought the one thing I kept thinking about as I was using the user study was like, how many of these like interesting creative ways that people were executing their workflows, like this kind of, these attributes, not kind of these like intermediate attributes to try to analyze what the LLM's doing to validate it. How much of that was because that's what the user's knowledge was, or how much of that was facilitated by the Doc Wrangler IDE itself? And I'm assuming it's a mix of both, but my gut feeling is that because they've presented the interface, the user interface in this way, and because they've added these like very kind of modular operation like elements to the interface, like my guess would be that a lot of these innovative ways that people were using using Doc Wrangler are because of how Doc Wrangler is built. But that's just a guess.
One of the things that I've found when I've been using it, I've gone through it myself, and I've wrote the prompt out, and I've extracted the data, got the columns that I wanted to, and then I've sat like the subject expert next to me, and I've said, is this the information that we want? Is this how we want it displayed? Is this, and what you're going to do with this after you've got it? So what the use case is going to be? So then that sort of drives, what fields you want. And I think without that user interface, it'd have been a lot more difficult process to get to where I've got to already. I could have wrote something in, LangChain or something like that, just chained a bunch of LLM operations and, you know, export it to a pandas data frame. But I just don't think I'd have been able to add the comments in situ or next to the data as easy. And I think that's where the value of that sort of GUI has gone. And I think that's what they're getting at here, that, you know, you can just quickly go from the start data to the end data and just keep moving.
100%. Yeah, they talk in the beginning, I think, or wherever they have the related work, and they talk about how, like, kind of the motivation for Doc Wrangler is like other ways of doing this requires a lot of context switching, right? Like you have to switch over to a notebook to, you know, maybe do some pandas analysis or like run a script, or then you have to like switch to a Word document or Google Doc to like collect notes and comments and like, yeah. So what you're saying, I feel like validates their claim that Doc Wrangler reduces context switching. Yeah. Do you want me to keep going on the user study?
You keep going.
Takeaways?
Yeah. You keep going. Yeah.
And you already mentioned this one, Alex, but I think this is like, I haven't really understood this, and every time I see it, I keep understanding it better. But like something that Hamel and Shreya, I've seen them talk about on Twitter, they talked about at the course, is like, try to make everything binary classification if you can. And so they talk about how they had this medical document processing had this free-form trust summary attribute, but then instead they added a Boolean trust attribute, true/false. You know, so does the patient trust the doctor? And that actually, what that led to was it showed too many all the examples as true. So then they're like, okay, binary doesn't really work here. So let's do like a Likert scale. So like trust out of, you know, 0 to 4 or 1 to 5 or whatever. And then they actually saw like a true, like a more reasonable variation. And I think I'm kind of jumping around a bit, but what that makes me think of later on, they talk about how LLM pipelines blur the boundary between data cleaning and analysis. And so they talk about how traditional workflows have these phases less intertwined. They never observed participants creating dedicated cleaning operations because they expected LLMs to implicitly clean the data. So there was kind of both sides to it, where like this Boolean operator itself was a problem. So you kind of have to think about, okay, is the LLM doing this operation correctly? Which is not a data cleaning problem. That's like I guess that's the like Gulf of generalization problem, or like Gulf of specification problem. You're not specifying what needs to be done correctly or precisely to the LLM. But I think then there's also this like, all phases of data analysis seem to be kind of fused together when you're doing this like fuzzy LLM-based analysis. So that was one point. That was a couple points there. And this actually goes back to Jay Maturino. Your I think it was a point earlier on. So this is right at the start of 6.2, and they talk about how unlike typical data science workflows where users begin with exploratory data analysis, all participants skipped manual document review and jumped straight into writing map operations. As they inspected outputs, they frequently revised their pipelines in response to what they saw, what we call opportunistic realignment. This realignment helped users bridge gulfs, the specification gulf by refining prompts, the generalization gulf by improving alignment with the quirks of their data. And so I thought that was really interesting, where it was like, on one hand, when you're doing evals, you know, the mantra is look at your data. But when you're doing document processing, it's almost like so for the FastAI folks, which I'm assuming is most of us, like Jeremy in part one of the FastAI course of the 2022 course, like he does data cleaning after training like a quick and dirty model. So you like do a quick and dirty model, you have it classify your images or whatever. Let's say you're doing like pet classification. You look at the results and then you're like, oh, this bear was actually titled cat. So I gotta go. Let me go clean my data. Let me come back to this. So like I think it kind of touches on that sort of approach where it's like you're not gonna like manually read all these documents or even a sample of documents. Like let's use the iterative approach of extracting data, looking at that data, looking at some samples, going back, revising the prompt, going back, revising the operations. So I thought that was a bit counterintuitive to me, but it does kind of make sense given the interface that's provided in Doc Wrangler.
I'll confirm that that's how I did it. I just went in there.
Oh, very cool.
I wrote a few prompts. There was a couple of lines. I looked at the output. I looked at a few samples. Okay, what else do we want? Added a few more things. Ran it again, and then I thought, right, okay, I need to sort of get some domain experts here. So I got those involved. I said, okay, what else do we need? And then sort of improved the prompt from there. Looked at it, and and that's the stage I'm up to at the moment. So the next stage next week is going to be more on the optimization side of things.
Yeah, and it's like you are looking at data, right? Like all the decisions you made of like refining the prompt or bringing in the domain expert, like none of those would be possible if you didn't look at the data. But you're not looking at like the source data. You're looking at like the actionable data.
That's it. And it's like you were saying, it's a bit like if you read every single document, you won't get started. So it's about starting and then figuring out, okay, what's the next steps, what are the next steps, and that iterative process, so you can actually get to something quickly rather than just getting stuck in analysing everything and not moving anywhere. And I think what makes it different now is that the way I've approached it is that I've used the cheapest model, see what I can do in that, and it's probably for I can't remember how many gigabytes it costs. It costs hardly anything. You're talking about £5, so £5 maybe like I don't know, $3 or $4. And then you look at your data and go, okay, yeah, that's good. But if you had to look at it yourself and the company was paying me our wages, it would cost a lot more than that. So
there was
go on.
No, sorry, it just makes me think Shreya did this podcast recently with Hugo Baum Anderson of the Vanishing Gradients podcast. And she was talking about how her team was hired to do semantic data processing, and it was on, I think it was like safety records or like police records, and the law school head said that if we did this manually, it would take us 35 years. And so I can't think of a better example of your point in that sense.
I mean, it got me thinking. You can do this every day because it's so cheap and so quick, or every hour. Of whatever large data sets you've got. So it's not something that you can just do once. It's something that, to understand what's happening in an organisation, whether you're looking at airline tickets, complaints or whatever, it used to take ages for that information to filter up. But now you can just click a button, get all this analysis, it goes straight to the top. The people who are making decisions, and they can sort of understand what's happening at the bottom. Obviously, they still need to talk to people to make sure that the LLMs aren't hallucinating too much, but at least they've got a starting place to start asking questions about, is this really happening? And that's how I see it in my organization.
Yeah. What you're talking about kind of sounds like, I think that's maybe like a wrapper, like that's the outermost loop, you know? Where it's like you're putting this human LLM outer inner loop that Doc Wrangler is providing, and then you're putting that in a business context.
Yeah.
A couple other things that stood out to me. The output schemas. So, it's basically like a series of drop downs where you select what the output schema should be and what data type it should be and so on. Acted as what participant 8 described as speed breaks, slowing exploration just enough for meaningful reflection. And that's kind of contrasting with the first kind of point they had made was that system responsiveness allowed rapid iteration, impressing users. For example, one of them expanded a GDPR compliance analysis to include CCPA patterns simply by changing GDPR to CCPA in the prompt, and the results appeared in seconds. And then, contrasting with that, the drop-down selection of output schema slowed down to provide reflection. So I don't know if you have thoughts on that, Alex, in your real workflow.
So what I've been doing is just working on a sample set of data, so you can send through a sample. So you can send through, say, 10, and then you can just work on those 10 samples, and you can quickly iterate on those 10 samples. And that's good for map operations. And then you can run the reduce on there as well. But I think the reduce really works well when you've got the whole records in there, because this is the major summary based on all these information you've extracted. So I can remember when I did the full run, I just went out for lunch and I came back and it had been done. So that was 6,000 records, something like that. Was that the original query? I don't know if I answered it right or.
Just kind of like what you're. Yeah, and I think it does. But like I was just my query was like, are you finding that work using Doc Wrangler kind of appropriately speeds you up or down based on how much you need to stop and think and how much you need to just like execute and get results to look at?
Getting results is the key for me. How I've been using it. If I didn't get results, I'll just be stuck in my own head and I won't go nowhere. So being able to view the results straight away using that sample, and then iterate off from there. It's just so helpful.
On a related question, what are some shortcomings that you've come across when using this? Like, what do you wish it could do that you're currently like running against the wall?
I think it's a skill issue for me at the moment. I'm exporting the columns and the data. So in here on the output schema, you can have various different options. You can have a list, and then you can have a list of strings, and you can have a list of dicts. So if you've got something that you want to extract, so say if you're wanting, I don't know, order numbers that have been listed in a particular document, and then how do you extract that information out? And when I've tried to open it in another product, whether it's pandas, polars, or Excel or whatever, I've just not been able to open it in the format I wanted to. So there's a bit of skill issue in actually getting this data and output. I don't know whether it's something wrong with the way it's outputting the data, because it's LLM generated, or whether it's something that I'm doing wrong. So that's one area. It's all, the skill set's all about prompting and then knowing the limits of the LLM. So if you use an LLM's regular, especially to extract JSON formats, then you would be well on your way to get the most out of this software. So I use LLMs a lot, but I've not done it for this mass sort of extract of data into a structured format. And that's just knowing limitations of the LLMs. So the next things that I'll be doing is just testing different models and testing different prompts and just getting a feel for what the model's capable of. The other thing as well is once you've done a reduce, so if I click, let's click here. So if I show, let's get rid of this one because this is one that I added. Yeah. So if we show the outputs for this reduce, you can see we've only got one column now. We've got a couple of counts, but there's only one column really, which is just information here, which is just all the columns, all the outputs that we previously added, merged into one sort of report, if you like. But then if you add an operation after, I don't think you can reference the columns above. So I'm not sure how you create a fork. So you'd have to switch environments and go back in there. So it just slows down your ability to play about with the data to understand what you can get out of it. Once you've gone through reduce, you can't go back and start adding extra columns and and maybe add a different reduced if your scenario changes, or if you're because a lot of the time when you're using the software, you don't always know what your output is. You don't know what your output should be. It's something that you're playing with as you're writing the prompts, and you understand the data better as you're processing the information. Yeah, so that's where I'm at the moment.
Cool. Yeah, thanks for sharing. I just wanted to kind of get an understanding of someone who's already using this.
Yeah, I've spoken to Shreya. I've just said, like in notebooks, like pandas are something that you do very similar. Operations, you start from the top, start from the beginning. You load your data, and then you do all the operations, or whether it's a machine learning sort of algorithm. Even if you're processing it through a neural network, you start at the top, you do all your wrangling, get all your data right, and then you process all the information through. But then you might veer off different data sets to play about with it, to see whether it works, and just try different things. And I don't think it's easy to do that in this, unless there's something in here that I just don't know about. But yeah, I'll let you know if I get further with it and whether you can get around that. I think you will be able to in the DocETL, the YAML Python library, but I don't think you can in the Doc Wrangler. The other thing as well is this. This is the project that you create. You can create a new project, but you can't reload a previous project. So you can't switch environments. So inside this here, this sort of playground that I've got, it's got my input data, it's got my prompts, and it's also got my all the outputs going down. So you'd be losing all that information. You can export the YAML file and then re-import it and then rerun the process, but you're taking time to do that. So if you wanted to switch between projects, it's a bit slow at doing that at the moment. So you've really got to be working on one project and not have any forks in that project, because your scenarios change, your requirements, or you have different thoughts and ideas and you want to experiment. So yeah, that's all I've come across so far. Is there anything else in the paper we want to cover?
I think at least one more thing I wanted to touch on was in the discussion section. So section 8, page 14, they talk about on the right hand, the top page. Alex, if you want to scroll up a bit. Yeah, on the right column, they talk about semantic data processing as a lens on human AI collaboration. And I think this was really interesting. First, we reflect on how to design AI systems. We observed users creating what creativity support tool research calls epistemic artifacts, exploratory objects that help users discover possibilities.
Did you know what that
pipeline
meant?
iterations. What's that?
Did you know what that meant without passing it to an LLM? Because I had to look it up what the wording meant.
No, I didn't know. Yeah, I still, I just took their definition as like, I'm gonna run with that. But the word epistemic always, like, I feel like I've looked it up 100 times and I never remember what it means. Because I think it sounds too much like epidemic, but I don't know. But they talk about like early pipeline iterations are like how artists explore materials before creating finished works. And then any system addressing ambiguous tasks may benefit from CST design principles. For example, supporting exploration without predefined goals and allowing movement between different levels of abstraction. And like, when I read that, like, I couldn't help but like very strongly relate that to notebooks in general, and then also relate that to SolveIT. Because I feel like that idea of ambiguous tasks, right, which is like most of coding or whatever LLM assisted thing you're doing is generally you're using an LLM because it's ambiguous to do it without it. The exploration, different levels of abstraction. So yeah, that kind of made me strongly think about SolveIT and notebooks in general. And then I guess I had one question for you, Alex, was like, because I definitely want to spend some time this weekend with Doc Wrangler, and I've been trying to think of like, what would be a good demo data set for me to use. And so one thought was like, maybe I use a couple of research paper PDFs that I'm familiar with, and like use that as documents, or maybe I use like the Fastbook chapters as documents. So I was curious, like, what type of data and what type of task would you say this is useful for? Like, would it make sense to use this as a sort of like, hey, I'm trying to learn this paper, let me use Doc Wrangler to summarize the main points? Like, is that a proper, it doesn't feel like a proper use case, but I was curious what your thoughts were on that.
Yeah, you can use it for that. My mind always goes to what's economical. What are the things that's going to be useful to society to sort of get this? And I think it's things like tickets. Do you know where people, or interviews, do you know where people are just free talking about information? Whether it's conversations with physios, with doctors, with you're talking to people at work, about problems that you got with IT systems, or where there's a lot of information being said, but there's only key bits of information in that. There might be a small part of it. And what people don't have time to do is go through all the waffle. And what you're trying to do is extract just the important bits of information out of that. And that's where the economics are. But saying that, though, it's the same in papers. If you've got a lot of papers that are all related, you could ask, what are the common themes in these papers? That would be something that would be useful, because you're not going to have time to read all those papers. But if you can get an LLM to find a theme for each one of those, or extract, I don't know, what are the common papers mentioned in there, but that's probably a problem that's being solved, through other means. But it's that, and what the tone is, or what the language is, or what the idea of that paper is being used for. Yeah. I'm just trying to think of something, data sets that you might have got. I was thinking, because you've got so many blog posts, is there anything that you could get from the blog posts that would be interesting, that you could find insights from there that you might not be able to easily? It may be one of those iterative process that you go through, where you just load up all your blog posts, and then you just say, what's interesting about these blog posts? And then you start,
what are themes?
just create little columns like that and say, oh, that's interesting. I've been writing about all this stuff, and there's common themes behind it, and then you start diving a little bit deeper, and I think that's where it starts to get a bit interesting. I don't know if
no, that's very helpful.
Do you know what else would be super interesting? The Discord channel. Just all the comments that you guys have been having over the years in the cluster stars. If you could just extract that and just what have people been talking about, and what's changed, or what's and I'm just trying to think of something that's just a little bit different that you could go for, and valuable to people, and valuable to yourself.
That really helps. That gives me a lot of interesting kind of vantage points, and I think you're just exhibiting why you have the applied AI bone more than I do. This is what I'm talking about. Like last week when I was talking about how applied AI people are just different, and this encapsulates that. That's very cool. I think that's all I had from the paper.
Should tell you other interesting thing that you could do. Go through emails. Go for your work emails, your personal emails, whatever interests you. That would be enlightening as well. Because then you could work out, what you do for work, and I don't know. There's interesting stuff in there that you probably don't even realise, and you can surface it.
Definitely. Or I could download Claude data, my Claude data, and
that'd be fantastic to go through.
That would be fun. I don't know if because that would be very interesting. I don't know if I want to know, but.
Has anyone got any other comments or any thoughts? I don't know who's still on.
No, just interested to hear how it goes once you've had more time to work with it. And I assume for that email challenge or problem that you were discussing earlier, your plan is to take that a little bit further. Is that right?
Yeah, so I've gone through the original extraction, and then the next is to summarize it. Before I summarize it, I'll probably just make sure that some of the operations could be a bit more efficient in terms of extracting correctly, because I don't know how correct, or how, it's not really correct, it's have we extracted as much information as what we can using the prompt that we've got, or should I break some of the operations down? Will that extract more? And I also need to specify how I want the data displayed in the prompt, because it's a bit iggly-piggly between different emails. But that might be useful, because when I do summarizations, it doesn't all have to be right. So that they're the areas that I'm going to be playing around with.
Nice.
And it's surprisingly easy just downloading emails from a corporate, and I think it is valuable. So I don't know if you've ever got opportunity at your work. It's just a useful tool, even if it's just your emails. Just demo it on yours.
Nice. Oh, that's good. Yeah, I tinkered around a tiny bit with it, but I didn't have a problem that was well suited for it. But no, it's something that is on my list of things to try out.
The long list.
I actually do have a problem where it is well suited, but the problem, it has an additional problem of getting the source data in PDFs, and PDF to
That's
text
fine.
is
That's fine. You can do that in here. So in the map operation.
I know you can, but for drawings, the text isn't really well formatted, and even if it is OCR, it's just not grouped appropriately. It's just that's the problem.
Yeah, it's something that I thought about, because I've attacked the drawing stuff before. Is can I do a better job in this program just by breaking the operations down? And but yeah, it's something I might sort of attack in this code again. Now I'm getting a bit more familiar with it, and I'll let you know how I get on with that as well.
Nice. And one of the issues you mentioned was switching environments is hard. Is that because it's not really built to have multiple projects, or do you know how the data is stored, and could you just create a different virtual environment or a different folder location where the data is stored, and then just have multiple instances even of Doc Wrangler running?
Yeah,
on different ports.
You could have different multiple instances. Yeah, that would work. Yeah, that would be one way around it.
Gotcha.
Yeah. I don't think of that. So yeah, that's cheers.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, you could have one for each project, couldn't you? Yeah.
Yeah.
You just when you're starting the program up and you're running it locally, because you don't have to run it locally, you can run it on the cloud through their doc. This is running on their cloud system that I've got at the moment. But you can run it locally just by doing a git pull and clone it. And then you just got to install, I think it's a FastAI back end, and then it's a React, an NPN front end. I'm not sure what the libraries are using, but just a few installations.
Nice. Nice. Yeah, I don't know if you messed around with Docker, but that's probably something that would be easy to Dockerize as well. And then it could, even if the app didn't have different configs for different ports, you could just make Docker on different ports.
It's got Docker by default, so you can do that.
Oh, nice.
I've been running it on my laptop, and I shut my laptop down, so it didn't really work out for me because I didn't want to start Docker each time and all that kind of stuff. But if you've got a server or a PC that's on all the time, then go for it.
Sure. I guess it'd probably be fine on your laptop if your laptop is the only thing you used to use, to actually interact with it. But yeah, for sure not.
I'm running Windows, and I just hate Docker on Windows. If you're running Linux, it's fine.
Yeah. Do you use WSL, or is it still just? I know it's a bit fiddly to get that going. But...
Yeah, I used to, and then I just decided that it wasn't worth it, and that's why I just sort of go if I'm using Windows, just use Windows directly, and I don't bother with any extra stuff because I just find it just a bit more admin hassle.
Yeah, for sure. Cool.
I had one more thought. I'm staying on longer because my puppy fell asleep for his nap on his own, so I don't have to do anything. He just bought me some more time. But one thing that I couldn't stop thinking when I was reading this paper was like, this feels like retrieval, right? Like it's sort of, I don't want to say implicit because like obviously it's very explicit, like you set the prompt, like you set the output schema, but something about it feels implicit. Like you're not, like, you know, or even RAG, to be honest. It's like retrieval / RAG, where it's like, you're not really asking a question of like, oh, you know, like, I mean, I guess you are, right? The prompt is the question. It's like, what are the themes in this? But it seems like you're not like, I guess when I think of RAG and when I think retrieval, I feel like you want to have your questions answered. So it would be something like, oh, what did this report say about the transaction X in December 2024, right? Then you get an answer. But I think this is retrieval, right? Like, I was wondering what everyone's thoughts were. Like, do you think of this as a retrieval platform? Is this RAG? Is this like a different type of RAG? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
I think it's kind of that, but also like RAG with the intent that you feed the whole thing through the LLM. like every chunk of every document versus like in
right.
search systems, you're just trying to find the relevant bits. Like this is trying to find the relevant bits, but the way, like the method, instead of like trying to do keyword search or semantic, is like you literally are like your goal is to go through all the documents. Or if you just want to like extract information out of the documents, which could then be used in a RAG system, like, hey, maybe like, you know, maybe even the best keyword plus, you know, Colbert isn't good enough. Like you need to like make your own keyword. Like maybe you have to make your own keywords, and like if you run this document parser over all your documents from step one and get out the relevant bits that you know you're going to need to search on later, where it takes, you know, like a full blown LLM to kind of extract that meaning and organize it. Like I think you could essentially be creating like a search index, like would be one use case. Would be like creating a search index of your documents that's much more sophisticated than keywords like BM25 plus, you know, vector search.
Yeah, so there's almost like this, it's almost like a, if we think of like, I don't know, this is going to be a half-baked thought, but like if we think of search and, I don't know what you call it, like document search on one end of the spectrum, and then you have like document parsing or something, or document processing on the other end of the spectrum or something, where it's like, hey, I want to know the answer to this question. It's like you have a specific search objective where it's like, only look at those documents that are relevant to this question. Whereas on the other end of the spectrum, you have document parsing or document processing, where it's like, I want to know what's interesting about all these documents. What are the themes? What, you know, there's almost like every document is relevant, right? That's what kind of comes to mind with what you're saying, Matt.
Yeah. Yeah, like if you had, going back to their example from the that they used as part of the study of like the police reports. I don't know, there was like a million police reports or something. I don't remember what the real number is, but a lot. And like the question is like, hey, like which ones of those are police misconduct, and maybe classify the type. If they are, then classify the type of police misconduct. And like, if you just like think about kind of the question answering bots, like none of them are going to be able to, like, if you put Colbert on that whole thing, like it's not going to be able to know if something like police misconduct or not. Like it's not going to be able to recognize the patterns. I mean, maybe it could, but probably not. Of like what's just a regular police report versus one that has misconduct in it. But this where you actually need to like feed all million documents through a set of prompts to like make that determination based on a set of criteria.
Yeah, no, that's a great point, because like Colbert is what it is because of the pruning, right? Like because like you for a given query, you're only looking at, I don't know, 1,000, 10,000 documents, less, because the actual interaction between query and document doesn't happen until like the very end of the model of the architecture.
Yeah.
And like all the indexing optimization, like the centroid thread, like look, clustering by centroid, like blah blah blah, like all these, like all the compressing into low bit vectors, like all these things are hinging on the premise is that you don't need to look at every document, and that's why we can just look at clusters of documents that are relevant. So I think it's like fundamentally there's this understanding that you don't have to look at every document, whereas this is like fundamentally the understanding is you have to look at every document because you want to know which ones are misconduct and which ones are regular, or what are the common themes across documents or something. So it's like, it's very weird because it feels like search and retrieval, but it's like, but it isn't. And the related work didn't really talk about retrieval and search, but it very interesting stuff.
Another look is the economics of it. So for this, you're not too worried about the price all the time. You're not doing a live system. So in RAG systems, usually it's all live and you're trying to get information quickly to the user's query, and you're worried about cost. So RAG systems, you can just fire loads of. You might be running like an OpenAI size company where you're doing memory and all that kind of stuff. You need RAG to sort of.
Oh, Alex, you're cutting out a bit too much. I feel like we're missing the key parts of what you're saying.
Oh, right. Okay. Is that better?
I think so, yeah. Can you repeat the last 15, 20 seconds?
Yeah, so I was saying that RAG is all about economics, and doing everything cheap, getting the numbers out there quickly, getting the data quickly to the user. Whereas this system, so semantic steering, is more about, doesn't care too much about the cost. It's about getting the accurate data, and it's about making sure that the results are as clean as possible.
You're cutting out a lot.
Okay. Let me try plugging these in, because I don't know what's happening with the internet.
Sure.
If someone else wants to speak, they can speak, so it might take me a few seconds.
Yeah, what that makes me think of is in the paper, they talk about the limitations of the paper. And I think Jay is no longer.
A little bit, but not much. Yeah, it's disappeared. I think he's driving. I think we should just keep talking until he comes back online. Just say something when you're back online, Matt. Yeah. So I think most of the systems that you deal with in terms of like Colbert or whatever, it's all about getting the price point down, scanning lots of documents and being as quick as possible. Whereas this is about being as accurate as possible and gain as much insight as possible. But you're not too bothered about time. And I think that's the key sort of difference. And you know, they're both opposite ends of the scale. Because I know a lot of this is what the whole discussion is. You know, like RAG's dead because everyone can say, "Oh, just use KV," because it's just got a lot bigger now. But RAG has got its purpose because it's about getting answers quick and getting lots of answers. Get search across a lot of documents, which are probably too big for KV, and you know, a lot of benefits as well. But yeah, it's just working on that. Two different systems, isn't it? Two different ways of thinking. Yeah, but this is where your mind goes because that's what you're doing. Yeah. I guess one place it could go is connecting knowledge together and just, yeah. Because if depends how big the documents are as well, doesn't it? Context in the documents, yeah. Oh, I saw you in one of the meetings the other day. Shreya was on it. And what's his name was speaking? The guy who does DSPY and Colin. Yeah. I saw. Oh, I know him. Vishal. Related. Yeah. Yeah, I think the similarity is that you've got your data output and you haven't got the prompt in DSPY because you don't build the prompt, but you annotate the data. And then the annotation of the data tells you what the prompt is. Because I can remember Hamill saying ages ago, was saying, "Show me the fucking prompt," you know, in his in his blog post. And it was like, yeah, you just can't see the prompt in DSPY because you don't care about it. That its principle is you shouldn't care about it. It should just be what the output is, and your comments and your evaluation on that output. Yeah, I don't fully understand it. I want to dig into it, but I just don't know whether I've got any application for it because I don't understand what it is. But yeah, maybe now I'm doing this stuff, I'll sort of, see the dots, join the dots. Yeah. Yeah, it's got oppositions there, yeah. Are you back, Matt? Yeah, we were all fine, yeah. Yeah. And do you know what DocPay is? Have you got any thoughts on it and what the differences are? Cool. Does anyone else want to speak up? Because I know that, yeah, I know there's a couple of other people, Anion and Exuna. No, quiet. I think I'm going to head off anyway. I'm absolutely knackered. Should I tell you what I would like next week? This is a favour. I'm updating my LinkedIn. So I wouldn't mind showing people my LinkedIn and just working out how to sort of organise it. And then just brainstorm ideas. Put myself out there. but best way to Cool. All right, I'll catch you later, guys.